Xxxtentacion has a long history of abuse, violence and manipulation. Whether this would be physically or mentally torturing them, X always demonstrated a pattern of disgusting behavior, carrying out beatings on people he supposedly loved. With these affairs being so deadly, his victims would end up requiring surgery, and X himself would be facing decades in prison. Now this poses the question to the majority of rap fans: how did X manage to have such a successful career with such a long history of terrible actions? Should X's name always be attached to these alleged crimes he committed? And in the end, should we separate the art from the artist? Now before we get into X's toxic relationships, giving some backstory to his childhood will give us some important context to certain actions later down the line. During X's childhood, his father wasn't around and his mother was financially unstable, and at times just interested in raising him, and he spent much of his childhood moving from home to home. The bond he had with her was incredibly strong though. When she was in the picture, he said she would shower him with gifts and affection, but when she was away, a darkness and depression ate away at him. When X started attending Margaret Middle School, a classmate had a crush on him, where she would show her affection to him by hitting him. When X came home from school, he asked his mother if he could hit her back, to which she replied with, "Give the girl 3 warnings. If she keeps hitting, you have to handle it." X took those words to heart, as when the girl next bothered him, he, and I quote, "slapped the shit out of her and kneed her." And X would get into many fights at school, which would end in him getting expelled and moved into a troubled youth program. In 2012, X would start attending Piper High, where he would start getting into legal trouble, picking up charges such as armed robbery, burglary, possession of a firearm, resisting arrest, and possession of oxycodone, which landed him in a juvenile detention, where again, he would get into a violent affair with a homosexual inmate by beating him and stomping his head against a concrete slab because he looked at him while he was naked. So as you can see, X has a past of violent behavior, which ended up sticking with him throughout his future relationships. Xxxtentacion and Geneva met online in 2014 while they were both still in high school. Geneva stated that she basically lived on her laptop, always in chat rooms and different social media platforms trying to make friends, as in real life she would be bullied by her classmates. During this time though, Geneva had a boyfriend, however their relationship was very strained, and after a particularly bad argument, the boyfriend took to Twitter and posted an illicit picture of Geneva, exposing her without consent. X saw these pictures and messaged Geneva and insisted on fighting her boyfriend for doing this. X would then set a date and time to fight the boyfriend. Then the day of the fight, Geneva met X with 2 friends at a Coral Springs movie theater, but her boyfriend never showed and the group hung out instead. And the evening came to an end. X took Geneva home, but she forgot her phone in his car. However, they would make arrangements the next day so she could get her phone back, but it quickly turned into a hangout where they would spend the next 3 days together, walking around random neighborhoods, smoking and taking far bus trips. Her and X would connect through their loneliness, as one time she had the markings alone on her legs, which she did to herself. X saw this and asked her why she did it.
"Why'd you do that?" And I was like, "Because I felt alone." He was like, "Oh, me too. Like, I feel like we're the same in that aspect."
I just felt like I found my significant other. I felt like I found my soulmate.
X then asked her to draw alone into his arm, and I can't say what they actually did on YouTube, but let's just say they used a sharp object to draw it into his arm. Anyways, he let her do this because it was so anytime she felt alone, she could think of him and knows there is someone who feels the exact same way as her. But at this point in time, Geneva was basically homeless, as her father wasn't interested in looking after her, and her pregnant mother decided to go live with her boyfriend instead of staying with her daughter. One time before, she even stopped paying the electricity and water bill in an attempt to force Geneva to leave, so X always tried taking care of her whenever he could. While she was living in a motel with her uncle, she only had an air mattress and nothing else, so X gave her a pillow and his jacket, as he didn't want her to feel like she didn't have anything, even if it meant he had to sacrifice what he had. One day X asked Geneva if she'd like to sleep alone at the motel.
I was like, "Yo, do you like sleeping alone?" She said, "No." I said, "Neither do I." I said, "I know that you stay in a motel. So how about I go back to the motel with you and I'll sleep in the lobby?" She said, "Are you serious?"
But Geneva eventually found out X had a girlfriend at the time, so she distanced herself from him, and they wouldn't see each other again for 18 months. The next time the two would meet would be at X's Oakland Park show in the May of 2016. At the show, the two instantly locked eyes, where X would walk up to her, grab her by the neck, look into her eyes, and then walk away. Now I don't know whether that was on some player shit or some warning of what would happen later on. X would then invite Geneva to the after party at the North Miami home of X's X's manager, Bruno Dickems. At the party, they would get to talking, where on the spot, X offered Geneva to move in with him, and even though she had a boyfriend at the time, things weren't so good in their relationship, so the next morning, she packed her stuff and moved in with X, who didn't have his own house at the time, so the two lived at his manager's Bruno house. However, things went bad very quickly. About 2 weeks after she moved in, Geneva would be admiring a male friend's grill on a Snapchat story, which X noticed, so he grabbed her iPhone 6S, smashed it against the floor, and struck her across the face. He later fixed the phone, but Geneva was stunned. "I got slapped for no reason," she says, and he kept acting like everything was cool. Later that day, X hit her again. She said, "I was really lightheaded because the slap was so hard. It was one of those slaps where you hear ringing." After she got hit, she sat in a daze. X told her to wait and then left the room. He would return with a barbecue fork and a wire barbecue brush and said, "Which one do you want me to use?" For, which I can't say on YouTube again. She chose the fork, to which X would then start dragging it against her thigh, where Geneva passed out. She said in her statement that as this was happening, she thought to herself, "I cannot let this happen to me. This right here cannot happen to me." After this, Geneva wanted to leave, but she felt scared to bring the subject up to X, as when she would talk, he told her she sounded stupid. During this time, X would be becoming more and more popular. Just a month before, he had a No Jumper interview, and his single Look At Me was starting to pick up on SoundCloud, overall making X a relatively popular artist in Florida. X would move to Orlando in late June, where Geneva went with him, and you might be wondering why she went after all the abuse. Well, it was probably because she was too scared to say no. After they moved, she stated this is when a pattern of regular, torturous abuse, with daily verbal attacks and physical incidents every 3 or 4 days would start, which I unfortunately cannot get very descriptive with due to YouTube policies. But X was also manipulative, as after he would abuse her, he would then try to flip the guilt onto her by threatening that he's going to put himself to sleep by filling a bathtub with water, then hanging a microwave over it, threatening to let go. X's triggers were usually jealousy. Small things could set him off, like humming another rapper's verse or asking a friend what music they were playing. One time when they were all in a car, one of X's producers said a joke, to which Geneva laughed at, and when they got home, X took her into another room and started beating her. Another time, when they were on their way to a show, they were listening to one of X's songs where she sang the lyrics. She then hummed along with a verse from a featured artist on the track. After this, X became silent and left her in the car outside of the venue. Once they arrived home from the show, X started asking her, "Why are you singing this part of the song? Why do you like him? Do you ever look at his Twitter?"
Ski's part of R.I.P. Roach, and like once we got home, he fucked me up, and he was like, "You like that nigga, bro? You like that nigga?" And I'm just like, what the fuck? I was just singing like the song that you're on too, and it's just like, damn, bro.
X would then headbutt her, punch her, stomp her, and eventually put her in the bathtub where he would stomp her again, where Geneva stated he even threatened to cut her tongue out for singing along with the song. She even tried running away down the street, where he tackled her, causing her to slam against the pavement, suffering from black eyes, a lump on the back of her head, scratch mark and bruises, including a large bruise on her ankle where he stomped her. It was also clear that X purposely avoided hitting her face, according to an ex-girlfriend of one of X's producers. Talissa Lee said he was hitting her under the chin, on her back, all her ribs were bruised up. Talissa also brought up a good point with the fact that not only was the abuse disturbing, but also with the fact that all his friends around him witnessed this and did nothing. She also stated herself, "I can't just sit here and hear a girl screaming in the next room, her voice gurgling because she's being held underwater." On the 14th of July in 2016, X was arrested in Orlando for allegedly stabbing his new manager Table, who X claimed had been stealing from him. X was shortly bailed out, but returned to jail shortly after for earlier charges of armed home invasion and aggravated battery. And while X was in custody, Talissa and a few friends helped Geneva escape, where shortly after she would move away to Texas, far away from X. However, X would be released on a $50,000 bond and placed under house arrest in September, and not even 2 months after the last incident of abuse, the two would start talking again and decide to move in together into an apartment complex with 3 friends. But X quickly learned while she was locked up, Geneva had been with another man, which was actually one of X's friends. So even though they were back together and all made up, it left X with a hysterical paranoia that she was hiding something. In one instance, he woke her up in the middle of the night, took her outside, smashed a glass bottle, and told her to tell him about the other man or he would fuck her up, which he did while all his friends watched. But again, X tried to manipulate her by flipping the guilt onto her, by threatening to put himself to sleep, by dangling himself from the 12th-story balcony, holding onto the railing with only his legs. It was every day Geneva was being her. In a statement statement, she even recalled how she felt by saying, "It's like he's going to end up killing me or something." However, their relationship wasn't all bad, and Geneva stated that when X wasn't angry, they got along. The two would even try for a baby and had a pregnancy test come back positive. But on the morning of October the 6th, while Geneva and X were laying together, he randomly snapped, went out on the balcony and called the man Geneva slept with while he was in jail. He would then return inside and say, "You need to tell me the truth right now or I'll you and this Jit," with Jit being a reference to their supposed baby. Then for the next 15 minutes, she claimed X brutally assaulted her. After this beating and the near sleep experience, Geneva looked in the mirror and couldn't recognize her own face. She stated that her temples were swollen, her eyes were leaking blood, and she felt as if her head was going to pop. She felt her vision disappearing while vomiting. During this beating, X's friends came in. Geneva begged these bystanders to take her to a hospital, but X did not allow it, as he told them she can't leave until her face has healed, otherwise the police would be called, meaning X would go back to jail. The friends attempted to treat Geneva by placing tea bags on her eyes and antibiotics on her wounds. X would then dress her up in a hoodie and sunglasses to cover up her wounds, drove her to North Miami, where he took her phone and left her in a random apartment she had never been before. She was abandoned in that room for 2 days straight, with no chance to escape as there were bars on the windows, and X even told her, "If you're smart, you will stay with me until you get a car and you have enough money to move into an apartment, because if you leave now, you're setting yourself up for failure, you're going to be homeless." However, at 2 AM on the 8th of October, Geneva left the room for the first time, and went to the kitchen to pretend to make X some food, while he was playing Minecraft and using Skype. But little did he know, this was actually an attempt to escape. She would open up the refrigerator door as far as it would open, so it would block X's view of her and what was going on in the kitchen. After this, she kicked open the back door and ran out into the street. She asked someone if she could use their phone and called the only number she knew by heart. It was the number for the ex-boyfriend she had been living with the night she agreed to move in with Xxxtentacion. Their ex-boyfriend's mother drove her to Miami Beach Police Department. Their ex-boyfriend and his mother would give depositions where they stated things such as her injuries were black and blue, purple, every colour under the rainbow. A 20-year veteran of the police force remembered Geneva telling him about being attacked for humming someone else's music, where he testified, "I had never in my entire career heard something like that." The next morning, police arrested X and charged him with aggravated battery on a pregnant victim, domestic battery by strangulation, and then later down the line, the charges of false imprisonment and witness tampering would be added. While in jail, Geneva would start a GoFundMe to pay for orbital surgery she required after being beat up by X, which at one point even got deleted due to X fans spam reporting it. One of X's friends would also record and post a phone call of Xxxtentacion in jail, where he states he did not beat Geneva up and that she got jumped. In the phone call, X would also explain how Geneva was never pregnant, and that in the paperwork it also said she came back negative on multiple pregnancy tests.
"Geneva fucked my homeboy. She's using you guys for money. She's still fucking my homeboy. I'm in jail. She tried to bribe me for $3,000 and tried to bribe my mother and my family and my peoples for $3,000. We gave her $5,000 on GoFundMe. If you want to go check it, my homeboy Lil Kill shit sent that shit to her motherfucking GoFundMe. Stop believing the motherfucking rumors. I did not beat that bitch. She got jumped. Bye." And by the way, for all you dumb fuck ass niggas that thought this stupid bitch was pregnant, I got the paperwork signifying that she wasn't pregnant. So when I get out, I'm fucking all y'all.
But while in jail, X would be setting up plans. He made hundreds of phone calls to friends, witnesses, and Geneva in an attempt to get the case dropped. He first called his friend, Chris, and explained him the plan. He needs to get in contact with the victim of the home robbery he committed in 2015, Che Thomas, and offer him money to sign papers to drop the charges, as after these charges would be dropped, he would be able to be released on bond.
Get Shay to drop the charges. Offer him 10 bands, bro. You need to get on that now, bro, because you can get him to drop it. All you gotta do is get him to go to the public defender's office. Did Geneva drop the charges yet?
You have 30 seconds remaining.
Did Geneva drop them or no?
Bro, she talking about she not dropping them, but she wants, she's basically not dropping them. I talked to Jazz and I'm like, bro, like, do y'all want to see this thing in jail forever, bro? Like, no, we're not trying to have that. And she's like, I understand, but Geneva, she's on some other shit now, dude, and she's like all over Twitter doing some extra shit. Like,
Shay would then ring X in jail on a three-way phone call, where he explained how he signed the papers and that he should now be released soon, as they only have the domestic battery charges to hold him on.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, what's good, Shay? What happened?
Yo, so I did everything I was supposed to, but you know, I met the lady and everything. She, the way it looks like, she she wants you to go to jail. Like, she really did not want me. She was like begging me to not sign that paper.
In their last phone call I'm showing, X is thanking Shay for signing the papers and explaining how thankful he is. He then tells Shay he is a rich rapper and he's going to set him up good after he gets out.
Yo, bro, real shit, bro.
Yeah.
I just wanted to call and tell you, bro. It's not even on no other shit, bro. I deadass wanted to call to tell you, thank you. You don't realize you saving my life, bro. You being a real life by doing this shit, bro. And I was, bro.
Yeah.
Real deal. I have never, bro. Nobody has ever, bro. Like, bro, I'm shit. Like, bro, there's tears dropping from my eyes, bro, because this is some real shit, bro. I've never had anybody do an act of kindness, bro. I've never had anybody do an act of kindness for me ever, bro. And I've never seen anyone put themselves before me, before themselves ever, bro. And I want to tell you, bro, beyond anything, bro, regardless of what happened, it might sound wild, bro, but you have a friend in me after this, bro. And, bro, I don't know if you've ever heard of me or heard about what I do, but I make a lot of money and I go a lot of places, bro, and I mean this when I say you have a friend in me because you are saving my life, bro.
Then fortunately, due to the witness tampering X committed, on the 26th of March in 2017, X would be released from jail on probation. While in jail, X's career skyrocketed. Look at Me debuted on the 95th spot on the Billboard Hot 100 chart, he got into a beef with Drake, and also got nominated as an XXL freshman. However, with all this publicity came a lot of hate, due to his very violent past with Geneva. In an attempt to repair the damage done to his image, first, a month after he was released in April, he did an interview with Fader.
This is a story, this is a full story, and this is the last time I will tell it. She was already bruised on her face. All while she was staying with me, she was already bruised on her face. Now with the severe bruising, I don't know how the fucking severe bruising came about, but she had like bruises on the left side of her face when she was at Bruno's. I think she got jumped. That's what I told everybody. Like, yo, she got jumped. Cause the way she was fucked up, I think she got jumped. They're not gonna admit to it. I don't give a fuck. That's not my part of the story. But that bitch got whooped bad. So I didn't beat her. Nor do I give a fuck about who beat her at this time. Cause now I know she's an evil bitch. There's the story.
Where he explained that he did not hurt Geneva. Then in the October of 2017, X had announced plans to donate more than $100,000 to a domestic abuse charity. Then in December, he planned an anti-rape event during Art Basel Miami Beach. But neither efforts came about. The event was cancelled after one of his vans vandalized the venue, and X says he never donated to any abuse charities. In the November of 2017, X had eventually convinced Geneva to sign papers stating she would not testify against him in court, basically making all the charges he got from beating and imprisoning her becoming useless. Suspecting coercion, prosecutors over the next few weeks charged X with 15 counts of witness tampering and harassment relating to both the domestic abuse charges and earlier alleged crimes. As evidence, they submitted recordings of 213 phone calls from X made from jail to his friends and witnesses, including Geneva. X would be immediately sent to jail, where he was held without bail, facing decades in prison if convicted. And even though X was locked up and Geneva was safe from him, her life was still a living hell. All her friends abandoned her after coming forward with the allegations. She was constantly harassed online, had her social media accounts hacked, and at one time she even decided to get a job at Dunkin' Donuts. However, X fans quickly found her, where they started harassing her, taking photos of her, and tried to follow her home. Just a couple of days after X's arrest, he would be released from jail and placed under house arrest ahead of his trial. But unfortunately, on the 18th of June in 2018, Xxxtentacion would be shot dead after being robbed, which would lead to all his cases being dismissed. Now, even after the things X did to Geneva, after his death, she still expressed love towards him.
I got to say, I get to talk about him whenever the I want to. Did y'all know him? No, y'all did not. Y'all knew what the he portrayed online. I knew who the he was, bitch. So don't ever come up to me talking about some, oh, why are you talking about Jase? Why are you talking about Jase? Oh, he's dead. Why are you talking about him? Suck my. That was my nigga at one point, and I fucking love him. So you could suck a.
So in the end, even though they had an awfully dark relationship, it seemed like they still had immense love for each other. So should X be forgiven for his actions, or should more big artists be prosecuted for their crimes? And ultimately, should we separate the art from the artist? Another disturbing affair X would get into with another female would be Jocelyn Flores. X would first get into contact with a 16-year-old Instagram model, Jocelyn Flores, on the 2nd of May in 2017. The two spoke over DMs, which would escalate into FaceTime calls, and eventually one day, X offered to fly her out. On the call, X spoke to Jocelyn's mother and asked for permission to buy her a ticket, which she said yes to. However, before we get into what happened, I want to give some information about Jocelyn's past. And truthfully, her entire life was filled with trauma. At the age of 4, her father died from a chronic illness he couldn't afford to treat. Not long after, she would be touched as a minor by an adult family member, with these two events leaving Jocelyn with a dark outlook on life. My head is just messed up, she would one day tell authorities. The doctors can't do anything for me. At the age of just 12 years old, she has been hospitalized 4 times for taking sweets, drawing on her wrists, drinking bleach from the bottle, or once, all 3. As she got older, her depression intensified. Jocelyn began seeing a therapist who encouraged her family to let her try new things. They gave her permission to try makeup, go to concerts, and even try medical marijuana. Then eventually, when Jocelyn proposed flying to South Florida to visit an up-and-coming SoundCloud rapper Xxxtentacion, her mother agreed, but it wasn't a choice exactly. Jocelyn had announced that she was going, with permission or not. Her and her family thought it would be a nice trip to take her mind off things, as on Christmas Day a couple months back she was hospitalized, so Florida would be a nice weekend away to have some time to relax. Now around this time, X had plans to launch his clothing brand Revenge. However, Jocelyn wouldn't be hired until after she arrived in Florida and stay with him. The first night passed without incident, although tension built between the two girls. On the second day, when X had planned to accompany his cousin to prom, everything fell apart. Sometime in the mid-afternoon, X left the apartment where they were all staying at and made his way to the prom. Hours later, X returned that evening, but he noticed he was missing around $7,000 in cash, which were recent earnings he got from a show that he kept in a bag. However, at this point in time, X had only been out of jail for 61 days and he was still on probation. He warned Jocelyn and Zoe that they could not fight in his home and they had to leave, he said, and Jocelyn could no longer model for Revenge. According to 3 statements to the police, X offered to buy Jocelyn a plane ticket back to Ohio, but she rejected it. Later that evening, X left for dinner, where Jocelyn texted him, panicked. Was he serious? Was she really kicked out? That conversation then ended with X informing Jocelyn that she could not stay with him any longer, and investigators from the day, 2 of X's male friends, took Jocelyn in a car and checked into the Hampton Inn Hotel, where one of the 2 men stated in their police report they didn't even know the girl's name as they only met her hours before. One of the men stated while she was sat in the back seat, the girl was mumbling something about a lesson learned. The 2 men, who had no baggage, helped her into her room and left to get food. He then texted a friend to hang out and left again to smoke. After 45 minutes, he came back to find the bathroom still lit up and locked from the inside. But it was late and he was tired. Within minutes, a hotel employee arrived with a screwdriver and slid the flat end behind the handle, unlocking the door from the outside. When the man saw the girl's feet overturned on the bathroom floor, he already knew what a police officer would announce some 15 minutes later, that the girl, 16-year-old Jocelyn Flores, was dead, with the death immediately being declared a suicide. After her death, Jocelyn's family supposedly attempted to contact X many times, but couldn't get in touch.
But basically, there was this girl that had basically flew down here. Well, I flew her down here to model pretty much, and great girl, beautiful girl, wonderful personality, showed no signs of depression whatsoever. And basically, she flew down here. She, in a way unexplained, she herself when she came down here, and I mean, it was a devastating situation to deal with. I basically got on here today to kind of address her and her family, because I haven't been able to obviously contact her family personally. I'm basically on here to pay my condolences. I mean, it fucked me up so bad to where obviously I wasn't in the social media for the last few days unless I was addressing something that I needed to. Her name was Jocelyn. I just want to really say
I really want to say I understand where she. I'm at a loss of words for the situation. In all honesty, I just really want to. It's hard to kind of even remotely have words for the situation. It's hard to come from exactly what obviously she came from, to be battling with suicide for so long and be battling with depression for so long, and then to kind of feel like a step away from it and see it happen right next to you and feel useless. You know, I felt powerless.
And this live stream would be the only time Joseline's family would get to hear him speak about her. A couple months later, in the August of that year, X would drop the song Joseline Flores in memory of the 16-year-old. Her family would be pretty upset at this, as X was yet to reach out to them and thought it would have been nice if he asked permission to use her name as the song title. Now, many fans have created rumors about what caused Joseline to do what she did, and what seems to be a reasonable conclusion is that she was probably so upset that she got fired over something that she never did, and she couldn't take the pressure of having to go all the way back home and tell her family that she lost a job, which took her over the edge. He still ended up having a relationship with a woman called Genesis, who would end up birthing his son, Gekume, 7 months after X's passing.